In this podcast episode, Tommy Robinson discusses the historic Unite the Kingdom protest in London, which he describes as the largest protest in British history. The event reportedly drew millions, far surpassing previous demonstrations like the Iraq War protest, which had long held the record. Held as a peaceful gathering, the demonstration saw people from across the UK, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and even the Republic of Ireland come together to express their dissatisfaction with unchecked mass immigration and the erosion of British culture and identity. Robinson proudly frames this movement as Britain's MAGA, a cultural and identity-driven revolution aimed at reclaiming national pride and opposing what they perceive as a demographic and cultural replacement. Robinson emphasizes the organic nature of the event, highlighting the entertainment, speakers, and the robust turnout, which stood in stark contrast to government and media attempts to downplay the numbers, with official reports citing only about 110,000 attendees. In reality, millions reportedly attended in person, with millions more watching the event live, especially on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, under Elon Musk's ownership. Robinson credits Musk's support and platform for the movement's ability to disseminate its message beyond mainstream media's control. Robinson recounts how Musk's public backing was pivotal during critical moments, including Robinson's imprisonment for producing a documentary exposing sensitive issues surrounding Islamic grooming gangs. Musk not only shared Robinson's work, amplifying the discourse on cultural and security concerns, but also financially supported his legal defense against terrorism charges. This support extended to efforts to improve Robinson's prison conditions, including ending his solitary confinement. The podcast underlines the importance of free speech platforms like X, contrasting this with Robinson's bans from Facebook and Instagram, which restrict what he refers to as his lawful activism. Robinson credits free speech advocates like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and J.D. Vance in the United States for fighting similar battles, making their platforms critical battlegrounds for discussions about immigration, Islam, and British identity. He laments the crackdown on dissent within UK social media and government, and notes how the censorship disproportionately targets activists like himself, while Islamist radicals remain largely unchallenged. When asked about the assassination of American conservative figure Charlie Kirk, Robinson expresses personal concern, noting parallels between the hostile environment in the US and the UK. He fears that a similar attack in Britain could spark an unprecedented uprising against the establishment, which has systematically ignored or suppressed nationalist voices. Despite the dangers, Robinson continues to speak publicly and reject security offers, living as a target within the UK. He details past incidents of state harassment, including unnecessary terrorism charges and attempts to silence his activism, which he describes as unjust and politically motivated. Robinson argues that the establishment uses accusations of racism, Islamophobia, and fascism to discredit and isolate him and his supporters, creating a climate of fear and misinformation. This state-driven demonization contrasts sharply with the growing public support he sees in millions who are fed up with current policies. Robinson sharply criticizes established UK political figures and parties, including Nigel Farage and the Reform Party. While Farage once championed nationalist causes, Robinson accuses him of betraying those principles by soft-pedaling on issues like Islamic immigration due to political expediency and the desire to appeal to Muslim voters. He highlights internal party controls and NDAs that prevent members from openly addressing concerns related to Islam and immigration. Robinson supports a rising political group called Advance UK, led by Ben Habib, an ex-Muslim with a multicultural background who shares Robinson's concerns about Islamic radicalism and grooming gangs. Robinson sees Advance UK as a political refuge for those who feel marginalized and censored by the establishment parties. He emphasizes the need for a political revolution that respects free speech and allows the British people to openly discuss their identity and security concerns. A significant portion of the podcast addresses the growing Islamic influence in the UK, which Robinson portrays as the core threat to British culture and sovereignty. He claims that Islamic immigration, rather than immigration writ large, is altering the country's demographic and cultural fabric at an alarming rate. Robinson controversially asserts that the establishment, including members of the royal family, particularly Prince Charles, is complicit. He alleges Prince Charles has expressed admiration for Islam and Sharia law, linking him to questionable financial entanglements with Qatar, a wealthy Gulf nation accused of funding Islamist movements throughout Europe. Robinson details an explosive claim about Prince Charles reportedly accepting millions in cash from Qatari officials, positing this as evidence of elite corruption and foreign interference in British affairs. He further references Qatar's deep involvement in funding Islamic groups and communities within the UK, accusing the government of prioritizing economic interests over public safety and cultural integrity. Throughout the interview, Robinson recounts ongoing adversarial encounters with radical Islamist figures such as Muhammad Hijab and his associates, whom he labels as extremists and provocateurs. He cites incidents where these individuals have threatened violence and incited hatred, particularly targeting Jewish communities in London, with little to no law enforcement intervention. Robinson draws attention to what he describes as a two-tier justice system that aggressively prosecutes critics of Islam or immigration, but permits incitement and intimidation by Islamist radicals. Examples include mobs shouting threats against Jews and calls for jihad in the streets of London, without arrests or police action. This unequal treatment, he argues, inflames communal tensions and undermines public trust in government institutions. Robinson highlights severe social and human rights issues tied to Muslim communities in the UK, including grooming gangs, underage marriages, and female genital mutilation. He provides alarming statistics on the dramatic increase in sexual assaults, reporting a rise from 8,000 to 88,000 over 2 decades, and shares disturbing accounts of daily sexual assaults on young girls by migrant men in hotels. He condemns the UK government's perceived reluctance to tackle female genital mutilation and child marriage due to concerns over cultural sensitivity or accusations of racism, describing these as systemic failures putting vulnerable children at risk. Robinson stresses the difficulty of confronting these issues openly due to political correctness and censorship, reinforcing his broader argument about the necessity of protecting free speech to enable social reform. Robinson critiques the UK media extensively, accusing it of weaponizing smear campaigns to silence voices like his. He laments how media outlets misrepresent protesters and activists, suppressing the truth about protest sizes and the nature of the demonstrations. He contextualizes these failures within a broader cultural crisis where British national identity and institutions like the Church of England have weakened significantly. He describes how once robust pillars of British culture, including Christian churches, have abandoned traditional values and sided with immigrant or minority groups, contributing to national disintegration. Yet, he also observes signs of a Christian revival among the public, suggesting a possible cultural reawakening in response to the country's challenges. In closing, Robinson expresses intention to continue organizing large-scale demonstrations and political activism, emphasizing the movement's growth and momentum. He advocates for uniting nationalist and cultural forces across the UK and wider Western world to resist what he terms the Islamic revolution and demographic takeover. Tommy Robinson calls for increased citizen journalism, free speech, and international solidarity among like-minded conservative and nationalist leaders. He stresses the urgency of restoring British pride, identity, and sovereignty before irreversible damage occurs, signaling confidence that public awakening has reached a critical tipping point.